like there's like a certain pain or crackle in like Kurt Cobain's voice, or like Amy Winehouse or Janis Joplin, like all these kind of like people that died young and were addicts, you know, and like there's something about like I think addiction that I'm always going to understand, you know, like because there's just like a level of pain and or like empathy that you feel for the world that I think all addicts kind of share. I think that's like where it's like a little bit of a misunderstanding or confusion. Like addiction is like I think more like comes as a symptom of like uh of being very empathic in a world that like doesn't reward that. Not I don't want to speak for every addict, you know, but
Sure.
that's been my experience a lot of the more often than not. And then addiction just creates like a loophole and you're just stuck in it, you know.
Are you comfortable with telling us a little bit about your journey with addiction?
Totally. I mean, that's like it's like I was on a lot of medication when I was a kid. I like had like childhood arthritis. Which is weird, but it's like rheumatoid arthritis. I had like all this swelling and stuff, but there's a lot of autoimmune diseases like that I think are really connected to trauma. You know, like not to get I'm like I don't know how heavy we can get on this
We can
podcast,
get
but
as
like we're
heavy as we want.
whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's sort of like I have like early like childhood sexual trauma, you know, and that was like something that had a lot of repression. I had a lot of like stuff around that like I didn't quite understand, but I think a lot of like that sort of psychic pain, I really think like connected to me having childhood illness, you know? And maybe me even like to an extent like my pain being taken seriously, which is it's like that's a hard thing to explain to people, but I really do think like a lot of autoimmune things, a lot of sicknesses, like diseases that people get, even like cancerous things, like I think are like connected on some level to a psychic thing. And I'm not saying it's like it's always this way. Like sometimes people are like, you know, like get offended or get, you know, like they're like I'm like, you know, but I in my case that's what kind of what I feel. So like I think being young, being on a lot of medication, sort of feeling different. I like used like walking canes for like a period of time as a kid. And like just sort of like feeling relief from pain pills, you know, like having these pain pills that like helped the physical sensation of pain, but also did something for my brain, you know, that I was that I like, I don't know if I recognized as a kid, but I just really liked it. Like, did the thing that I'm talking about that loud music does, where your brain just kind of goes silent, you know, and there's like
Mhm.
a really beautiful, like, whatever, like solace in that. But yeah, like, I gradually like went into like remission, started kind of like I don't know, I was like feeling my body was like at a much better place like sort of later high school years, and then I moved to New York for college, and it was like I can remember the first time I ever drank. I like drank like it just felt so amazing. Like I think a lot of alcoholics like describe that feeling where you're like you drink and you're like this is the cure for all of my pain, you know, like this is
Mhm.
the thing. And I think I drank a whole like handle of like the worst like you know like Southern Comfort or something, you know, something terrible like you know like puked, vomited, you know, and just sort of continued to like drink heavily in New York. I think it's really easy in New York to like have that. I started doing drugs after that, you know, like I think there's a lot of times you like meet people in the city that just like offer you things. Like I don't know, like it's like being young and femme in the city. It's like I just go out with a fucking chapstick, you know, no wallet, like just you know, like just on the town and like you know, like whatever, get into all the things I could get into. And I think I was maybe drawn to substance mostly because of the conversations of people or something, you know, like I was interested in people and getting to know people. I was interested in like sort of like sucking up the most of life, you know. I feel like I had a lot of fear, probably again from like having a lot of like sickness as a kid and like not being able to do a lot of things as a kid. Like I had this almost like overcompensation for that where I was like I gotta like just like live life, you know, and like go out to all these parties. And like I felt like I've never felt like somebody that was cool, you know, or somebody that was like good with people. So alcohol or drugs like gave me a way to connect with people. Being somebody that really struggles, I think like connecting, you know? So it's like it came from a lot of loneliness, you know, it came from a lot of all that sort of stuff. And like I think when I was like, like I started, like doing worse and worse things, but like kind of like it really like peaked in the pandemic. Like Jake, our guitarist, also like was like we were both kind of in our peak like using and alcoholic phases like in
Mhm.
that time, and sort of had equal and opposite neuroses that it, like imploded on each other, where it was just like we just both kind of like hit a bottom. And we broke up for a little bit, and then like I don't know, there was just something that in my heart and in my head like felt right to like Jake had gotten like kind of fully sober first, or like had started going to like 12-step meetings and like started to like really do this thing. And I think it was like I was a little more hesitant. I think a lot of times like alcoholism and people that are more beta or something, like I think, how do I explain? I mean beta in a positive way too. Like I consider myself like that, like more I don't explode in anger. I think
Mm.
like when you're an alcoholic and you like get in a bar fight, people are like, "Oh my god, you have a problem," you know?
Right.
But like when you're an alcoholic and you get so drunk that you like go, like out and like go home with a random person who you don't know and like use this kind of like it's like there's like subversive ways that I think a lot of women and mainly women, I would say like women and like femme people like are alcoholics that are like not recognized as much because it's like
Mm.
it's subversive and
Mm.
it's more insular and it's less of like like an explosion in anger and more like self-harm, maybe to yourself, and or like like I don't know, like just ways in which it showed up for me that were less disruptive in a way like that, like was for people around you. I think like a lot of times like growing up, being like raised a woman, you're really like taught to like not be like that. I think that's where even at the start of this interview when I was talking about having like a difficult brain, like I think a lot of that like rings in my head from being like a kid, just being like always being like difficult, like you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like just like being this kid that like needed to like be on medicine and like needed to like do all this stuff, and like it's just like I couldn't do anything that was like just I couldn't just like be easy, like be simple or something. And I just find that like a lot of people that were raised as women have that experience.